Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, migraine strategist, chronic daily migraine survivor, and founder of the Facebook group Migraine Nation. I am excited to be here today with Dr. Buse. Hi, Dr. Buse. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Weitzel. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Dr. Buse is a clinical professor of neurology and a psychologist who specializes in headaches. She has been with us a few times before, and she is always awesome to listen to. We learn amazing things from her. And today we have a very exciting episode geared around the fact that it is New Year's time. We want to set some New Year's resolutions. We want to make some goals for the next year. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to do when you know you have chronic migraine or you know you have a headache disorder. And so we want to talk about some of the time-honored ways, the ways that are backed up by data that are really good to set goals. And then we want to talk about maybe some of the ways that we can alter that to make it fit us, those of us with headache disorders. And so this should be a very uplifting and exciting podcast. I hope everyone likes it. So Dr. Buse, let's start with you. Why don't you start by introducing one of the best ways that is known to set goals?
Great. Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah.
So psychologists and personal trainers and physical therapists will often use what we call SMART goals.
Right.
And the SMART stands for S-M-A-R-T. So they are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time-based. So let's choose any kind of goal. A very popular one that's actually very good for people living with migraine and other chronic headache disorders would be starting an exercise routine. Mm-hmm. So how you would make a SMART goal would be, first, it's specific. So we say very specifically, my goal is to exercise 3 days a week. And we could get even more specific than that. We could say by taking a walk around my block, which will be a half mile, after dinner, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now we've gotten very specific. Mm-hmm. Measurable. That's very easy to measure because now we got specific. So we would say yes or no, I did do that walk today, or I didn't do that walk today. Mm-hmm. Is it achievable? Mm-hmm. We want to start out with goals that are not too lofty because we want to set ourselves up for success. Right. So we want to start out with kind of goals that step up. And we want to start out with something that you're going to start by succeeding. So certainly, I think a lot of people would say, I can do that. I can walk 3 times a week after dinner around my block for a half mile. That's something I can do. Maybe I'm going to enlist a family member or a friend. Make it even better chance of success when you have a partner or teammate participating there.
Right.
Is it relevant? Is this trying to get you to some place that you want to be? Well, I think actually starting exercise or upping your exercise is very relevant for living with migraine. We actually know that it's very helpful for the nervous system, to condition the nervous system for someone living with migraine. It may help reduce attacks. It may raise the threshold for those attacks. Mm-hmm. It may help reduce their severity, and there's some nice data on. So definitely this is a relevant goal for a lot of people. It may also be linked to perhaps you want to lose weight or get better muscle tone or have more energy. Those are all very relevant for people with living with migraine. And then it's time-based. So we wouldn't say that we're going to do this till the end of time. We're going to say, in the month of January, I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's our SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based.
Right.
Now, what we actually choose for the goal is going to be very varied depending on each individual person, mm-hmm. where you are physically, where you are psychologically and emotionally. We have to realize a lot of people listening to this podcast may be living themselves with migraine or another chronic headache disease, or maybe have a loved one living with a chronic headache disease. And of course, migraine is a unpredictable, painful, debilitating chronic disorder with episodic manifestations that can come without warning and can lay you out flat. Yep. So we've got to remember that we've got to modify for what it's like living with a chronic illness. Yes. And then we've also got to modify, because we're recording right now at the beginning of January 2021, we are still deep in a global health pandemic. And a lot of things we might do have done previously in our life or might do again in the future may not be options right now. So we have quite a few things that we're going to adjust for. And Lindsay, I know you have some ideas about how to make goals really align with your values and work for you when you're living with a chronic illness.
Right. I think that the first thing that's popped into my mind is you picked a goal that wasn't a number. Instead of saying, I want to lose 5 pounds, I want to lose 10 pounds, you said, I want to walk 3 times a week, which I think is so important when you have a chronic illness. I feel like hard and fast numbers like that, sometimes because you're eventually probably going to end up in bed after work when you were going to walk, right? And your mind, when you're in bed with a migraine, often goes down the rabbit hole, I like to say. You get depressed, you get anxious, you feel like you were supposed to be doing something. And if you've got some hard and fast number like, oh, I'm supposed to be losing this much weight, I haven't lost this much weight, or I was supposed to accomplish something by now that was some number, I think that gives you more anxiety, makes you feel worse, stresses you out more than okay, I'm going to walk 3 days a week. So choosing your goal that's a goal that's nice on yourself when you know you have a chronic illness, you know you have a headache disorder, I think is step A. I think it's very important. Choose a goal that makes you feel good. Walking makes you feel good. Why do you like to walk? Focus on how it makes you feel. Things like that. We don't want goals that make us feel nasty when we're trying to accomplish them. So that's what I
heard you say should like 7 times. I should have done this. I should have lost more weight. I should have done this for longer, faster, been better at it. And I completely agree. That kind of expectation is going to set someone up to feel a whole range of things, maybe depressed about it, maybe anxious about it, maybe feeling helpless or hopeless, really the opposite of what we would want to come out of a goal.
Right. If you find that your goal, when you are stuck in bed and you can't be actively working toward it, is making you feel worse, your mind's going the wrong way. Right. And so remember that Dr. Buse used the word modify. What a beautiful word. I love that. We can modify these goals, but most importantly, you are still working toward that goal. Even if you're stuck in bed for 3 days or a week, it doesn't mean you failed. And I think the saddest thing that I see so many of us do is we get stuck in bed all of a sudden and we have an intractable migraine episode or something like that. And then we think, oh, whoops, that goal went to the wayside. It's gone. No, it's not. It's not gone. And one of the tools that I like to use is, and some people maybe get tired of hearing me say this, and if it doesn't work for you, don't listen, but I like to use a vision board for like the long-term goals. And they're not words, they're just pictures that are easy for you to look at when you're not feeling well, so that you can keep your mood up and remember where you're going when you're stuck in bed. And you're still keeping your mood, your outlook, going in the right direction instead of your mood going downhill when you're stuck in bed, right? That means you're still looking toward your goal. You're still looking toward who you want to be. You're still looking toward these positive things you're working toward, instead of getting depressed or anxious and just feeling like you failed. And so that's why I like to use vision boards for people when they're really not feeling well. Because
I really like that. How would you go about making a vision board?
So I like to tell people, so you can go on Pinterest, but don't follow Pinterest boards necessarily, because they've been shown to cause people to feel a little depressed and stuff. But if you go on there and Google what you're looking for, let's say you want to do a yoga program or start walking, Google someone doing yoga, Google body positive pictures of someone doing yoga, someone walking, or of someone, if it's a work related goal, someone wearing glasses and working on it, anything. You can Google anything, or in Pinterest search, maybe not just Google, and then cut that picture out and put it in a PowerPoint slide form. You can have 30 pages of a vision board in PowerPoint. Is this something that you can work on when you're stuck in bed with a migraine, or something you can glance through when you're stuck in bed with a migraine. And what is it doing? It's keeping positive images flowing through your mind. And it is helping your mind stay on your goals, even when you're not capable of actively working toward them. And what I find is that sometimes if you're not doing that positive thing, it's sort of the migraine's job to take your mind down. So you got to do these things to keep it up. So this is why this is one of the tools I like to see people use to stay on their goals, even when the migraine's trying to tell them, oh, you failed, because you didn't fail. We know that we're going to be stuck in bed when we set that goal. There's going to be some days when we're not going to be able to work toward it, and that's okay. So that's the positive message I like to throw out there.
I love that. And I also heard you pre-setting expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we've got a listener and she says, most months I have, at least a day a week, maybe 2 with migraine. So let's say to that listener, okay, you know that you're going to have on average 2 days per week that are lost to migraine next month. And let's hope it gets better, but let's just say that's what it looked like last month. So let's just plan around that. Let's know that there's going to be 2 days and even a bit of time before and some time after that you're not going to feel like working on this goal. And that is where you are right now. And let's just honor that and just work with that and say, okay, so there's going to be about 3 or 4 days a week that are not going to be the best days. What are we going to do those other 3? Those 3 are the days we're going to work on this goal. And these goals can be anything. They can be career or professional, they can be academic, school, learning something new. They don't have to be just a physical kind of, I use the example of walking, but boy, they can be anything. And setting goals is a great thing to do. Obviously, when we go get in our car, we're usually going somewhere, a specific place. And if we didn't have a specific place in mind, we will probably end up driving around and we don't know where we're going to end up. So clearly, setting goals does help us achieve something that is valuable. So I think one of the places that we start, Lindsay, I liked this with your vision board, is what matters to you. Not just what society is saying, what your doctor is saying, what your friends or family are saying. What would you like to see happen and manifest itself in your life this year in 2021? Really spend a little time and let that marinate and let that come out. And then once you've aligned with a goal that is dear to you, now start to set those mini steps, those actionable steps, those measurable steps, those realistic steps to get you there. Yes.
There's another trick that just popped into my head that I tell people all the time and I think is incredibly useful, and I use it all the time. When you're feeling, you're not stuck in bed yet, but you feel pretty terrible, and it's that, can I walk? Can I make it to the gym? Can I write this paper I have to write? And this is, and you're trying to figure out if you can move towards your goal, if you can do what you need to do that day for your goal, and you're not sure if you can. I tell people, okay, get to the gym and walk in. If you walk right back out, it's okay. That's your test. Get outside and start walking. If you only walk 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you go back home, that was your test. And maybe you got in 10 minutes, which is better than nothing. And I'll tell you that there are times when, because I do some medical writing, some migraine medical writing, I wake up after a migraine the next morning and I have 3 lines written, but I got some ideas down on paper instead of just laying down. I gave it a shot. And that is a big deal because, to be honest, if you're a migraine medical writer, if you start writing when you have a migraine, it's going to mean a lot more to people with migraine. So it really, honestly, it is a very helpful tactic, because sometimes it means you actually got the full 30-minute workout, 40-minute workout done, or half of the paper written. And sometimes
if you didn't, like you said, even if you only got X number of minutes of an exercise, of your homework, of mindfulness meditation, those minutes can add up throughout the day. And it's going to be good for your spirit. Doing some is a lot better than not at all. And so I think a lot of this has to do with adjusting expectations and being gentle on yourself. Exactly. I think a lot of us are much more kind to others in the world around us than we are to ourselves. And, I want to take a step back, Lindsay, and very much acknowledge that to anyone listening, there are probably current and past big and small goals and activities that migraine or other severe headache disorder has stolen from you.
Took it from us.
And you
Yeah.
have every right to grieve that loss. That is very real. You have every right to be mad, to be sad, to feel guilty, to feel helpless, to feel hopeless. Whatever it was, if you are no longer in a career that you trained for, if you didn't continue an educational program that you wanted to, if it affected and changed relationships, you're not alone. This is very real. This is, according to the World Health Organization, the second most disabling disease on the planet. This is real, affecting more than 1 billion people with a B. Now, I think a lot of times it's easy to kind of feel almost ashamed about that and kind of turn inward on oneself and isolate and be alone and be embarrassed and carry that stigma as a self-stigma, rather than saying, migraine has caused this in my life, affected me this way, or other severe headache disorder. But okay, honor that, grieve that, respect that, and also, what do I want to continue to move forward on? And how have your goals adjusted? Was there a different goal that you might have had previously before migraine, or when it wasn't in such a bad state for you, that now you either need to modify, or you're coming up with entirely new goals and plans for yourself?
I think that I have a really good example of that maybe it will help people relate to. And it took me years to figure this out, but I was a very serious competitive swimmer growing up. I did morning workouts, night workouts, dry land workouts, weekend. I did it all from the time I was 7. And I didn't even have a diagnosis. I had daily migraine from the time I was a toddler, from when I was 4. And I didn't get a real diagnosis till I was 17. But before I even made it to the age of 17, I was too sick to swim. I was vomiting during workouts. I couldn't turn my head from the neck pain. It was a mess. It was, obviously, if anyone has daily migraine out there, they're going to know you can't work out like that at some point. And it tore me apart. Really did tear me apart. I felt like a complete failure. And I didn't understand why I was in so much pain, et cetera, et cetera. Years later, as I was healing emotionally from this disaster, in my mind it was a disaster, I realized that what I really liked about swimming was the sensation of flying through the water. So I went back and I swim on my own. I don't compete against anyone. I don't have anyone telling me what workouts to do. I do the kind of swimming that doesn't hurt me. And I get that sensation of flying through the water. And that is my goal when I get in the pool, is I want that sensation. I don't have any specific times I'm trying to meet. I'm not trying to beat anyone, and no one is telling me what to do. My goal is that sensation of flying through the water. And I love it. And I do it all the time. And so I hope that gives, some perspective to what you were saying, because I did that years ago before I really thought it through. And it took me years to get through that process. I hope it doesn't take other people as long as it took me. But I changed a goal and found out what I loved about it and went back and did it on my own. So it's a process you can go through, and there is mourning involved.
There is mourning, and there's growth, and there's change. And you are obviously have a lot of wisdom and experience from going through that process. And I think people listening to this podcast, living with a chronic migraine or other headache disorder, have a lot of wisdom and experience to share.
Yeah.
And there may be other ways,
Everyone
other
does.
outlets to start to share that. Could be through advocacy, that could be through writing,
Yes.
could be through mentoring, could be through something that previously was a hobby or a volunteer activity, which now might be able to be brought into the world and given in a different way.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a way to bring things that someone loved that made them who they are. And I could tell that swimming was really part of your identity, that can be reformed and made to work within the parameters you're working with now.
Yes. I think that's a very important message, especially if you're someone in that grieving process. The process is normal. The way you feel is normal, and there's ways to work through it. And there's always happiness on the other side. There's other goals to set, and there's other ways to express yourself. It's totally normal to go through it. That would be
And I bet there's people listening who haven't even thought about that they deserve to give some real acknowledgement and respect to what they have lost, to their previous identity, to the previous career or relationships or activities or hobbies or sports that they're not doing now.
Right.
And maybe no one's ever given them permission before to say, you have the right to grieve this, to be angry about what was stolen from you, to be sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important message. And that's why I do think we have to be so careful, because, you know, we are a little scarred from that past experience. And that's why I think we have to be careful when we set our goals, because we don't want to let ourselves get down and feel like we failed just because we had a day where we didn't meet the goal, 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks. I don't care. I get stuck in bed when the season changes, often for 2 weeks. And no, I am not meeting my goals during those 2 weeks. It is a fact. And so, so this goal setting, we're giving people what the traditional way to set goals are, and then telling them how to make sure you stay up, make sure that you are okay when you have those days when you are not meeting your goal. And
what if there was some self-grace that Lindsay, when the seasons change, will get through that by hibernating for a couple weeks. And that is part of your goal, like to successfully get through the season change.
Exactly.
And letting friends and family and those around you know that that's kind of how you navigate the seasonal change. That's what's going to happen. And you got through it. You know, a real adjustment of what we expect of ourselves, and also communicating to those close to us so that they also recognize that there's been adjustment in what to expect.
Right. I think it's important. And don't forget that you are accomplishing something by making it through that migraine that's held you back. And you're a stronger person when you come out the other side. And so, I do think we should go back and review the goal process, the SMART process, really quick, what the letters stand for. And with encompassing, now that everyone knows, you know, what we said about, you know, the migraine or the headache disorder version of it, that we gave everyone permission, you know, it's okay. I think it's important sometimes to hear these things from someone else. When you're stuck in bed, you want to know that there was a voice coming from somewhere else that told you these things. And so I think it's important. But Dawn, can you go through what SMART stands for again?
Exactly. So it is specific. So get into the details. It is measurable, something you can check.
Right.
As opposed to, I'm going to get better at this. I'm going to actually practice this 3 times a week at this time of day. So it's very, very measurable. So you can say, I did that. It is achievable. We want to just keep leveling up a bit each time. And that's how we're going to kind of move up. We want to start and set ourselves up for success.
Right.
It is relevant. It matters to you. And it's a step that's in a path that you care about. And it is time-based. So it's a goal for now, for a short term. And then as you get to the end of maybe the month or maybe a semester, or maybe whatever that time is, you reassess and rechart your course and figure out where you are and where you're going next.
Right.
So I think at this time of year, and I think that New Year's or birthdays or other milestones are a nice time to reflect, to take a moment, think about where you've come from, where you are, and where you'd like to be.
Right.
And maybe really take a new filter on this and think about, how would I like to feel? And what are some ways within where I'm living right now, within what my body is doing right now, that I can start to achieve some goals? And you may see just very different goals emerge than you had hoped before.
Exactly. I think that's really a really positive thing to say. My goals after 2020 sounded so different than any of the goals I've ever set. They really did. And interestingly, they're a little looser. They had a lot to do with being mommy, because I'd spent so much time with my kids. They were just very different. And so I do think it's an interesting time. I think we've all changed a lot after or we're still in the pandemic, but we've changed a lot. And yeah, take that time and be okay with who you are and the chronic disease you have and what you're capable of doing. I think that is the important message here. Good luck setting all your New Year's resolutions, and don't forget who you are and where you want to go. And we're very excited for everyone, and we would love to see what you're doing. So Happy New Year and happy 2021. Bye-bye.
Thank you.